The story of Abram and Lot, from Terah to separation. It didn't begin with Abram. It began with a man named Terah, a father, a man who had seen life. And Terah lived in a place called Ura City, filled with noise, trade, and idols. Life was busy there. Structured, predictable. People built their futures with their hands, but also with their gods made of stone, wood, and imagination. And Terah raised sons. There are Abram and Haran, but life doesn't always follow the script we expect, because one day Haran died, not in old age, not after a full life, but early, unexpected, and something in Terah broke. Grief has a way of changing direction, of making a man look at everything he once called home and wonder if he still belongs there. So Terah made a decision. He gathered his family, Sarai, Abram's wife, and Lot, Haran's son, now fatherless, and he left everything familiar, left comfort behind. They were heading somewhere new, a land called Canaan, but they didn't make it all the way. They stopped halfway in a place called Haran, and there they settled, stayed, built again, waited until one day Terah died, and that's where the real story begins. Abram stood at a crossroads, no father, no clear direction, just life ahead of him, and then God spoke. Not in a dream of confusion, not in whispers of doubt, but with clarity that cuts through. Everything, leave your country, leave your people, leave your father's household, and go to a land I will show. Map, no coordinates, no detailed plan, just a promise. I will make you into a great nation, I will bless you, and you will be a blessing. Imagine that moment. Everything Abram knew, everything stable, everything predictable, God was asking him to walk away from it, not because it was bad, but because there was something greater ahead. And here's the question. If God told you to leave everything familiar without showing you the full plan, would you go? Think about that, really. Think, would you move without knowing where you're going? Would you trust without seeing proof? Or would you stay where it's safe? Abram chose to go. He didn't argue, he didn't delay, he moved, and Lot went with him. Lot, the nephew, the one who had lost his father, the one Abram took under his wing. They weren't just traveling together, they were building something together. Step by step, they journeyed through unknown lands, through uncertainty, through moments when nothing made sense. But they kept moving, because when God leads, you don't always understand, but you trust, and slowly they began to prosper. Wealth increased, livestock multiplied, servants grew. Their influence expanded. What started as a journey of uncertainty became a life of abundance. But here's something most people don't talk about. Blessing can create tension. Growth can create pressure. Increase can create division, because the land could no longer support them both. Their flocks were too many, their herds too large. Their servants began to argue. Conflict started rising, not between Abram and Lot directly, and eventually it reached them. Abram looked at Lot not as competition, not as a problem, but his family, and he said something powerful. Let there be no strife between us, for we are brothers. Then he did something unexpected, something most people would never do. He gave Lot the choice. If you go left, I'll go right. If you go right, I'll go left. Think about that. Abram, the one God, spoke to Abram, the one carrying the promise. Abram, the leader, gave the first choice away. Why? Because Abram understood something deeper. When God is guiding your life, you don't need to fight for position. You don't need to grab opportunities out of fear. You don't need to compete, because what is meant for you will not pass you. But Lot looked with his eyes, not with faith, not with discernment. With his eyes, and what he saw looked perfect. The land near Sodom, green, watered, beautiful, like paradise. So he chose it. He chose what looked good, what felt right, what seemed like the better option, and he went. But here's the part many people miss. The land was good, but the environment wasn't, because Sodom was corrupt, wicked, broken. Lot chose comfort, but stepped into compromise. Meanwhile, Abram went the other way, to land that didn't look as appealing, didn't feel as secure, didn't scream success. But it was where God wanted him, and that's the difference. After Lot left, God spoke again. Sometimes separation prepares you for the next level. Lift up your eyes. God said, look north, south, east, west. All the land you see, I give it to you. Now notice, this Lot looked first and chose of his eyes. Abram waited. Then God told him to look. One chose based on sight, the other received based on promise. Let me ask you something. Are you making decisions based on what looks good, or what God said. Because not everything that shines is safe, and not everything that looks small is lacking. Build altars, stayed connected to God, step by step, promise by promise, his life was unfolding. But Lot moved closer to Sodom then, and to Sodom then became part of it. That's how compromise works. It doesn't happen in one step. It happens gradually, quietly, subtly, until you wake up one day. And you're somewhere you never planned to be meanwhile. Abram kept walking with God, growing, building, trusting, and becoming exactly who God called him to be. Now listen carefully. This story is not just about Abram and Lot, it's about you every day. You're choosing between what looks good and what is God, between comfort and calling, between sight and faith. So here's the question again. If God asked you to walk away from what feels safe, would you trust him enough to follow? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear from you if this story spoke to you. After Abraham and Lot went their separate ways, something interesting happened. Life slowed down, no conflict, no tension, no voices arguing in the background. Abram and God ba. Here's the thing about walking by faith after big decisions. There's often silence, no immediate reward. No instant results, no visible Quite away to the unknown, Abram stood in a land that didn't look like promise. Didn't scream future. It didn't look like the blessing God described. It looked ordinary, dry in places, uncertain, unimpressive, and yet God said, this is yours now. Imagine the tension in that moment. God promises greatness, but your reality looks small. God speaks abundance, but your environment feels limited. Says, I will, but all you see is not yet. Then something happens. War breaks out while Abram was walking in quiet obedience. Lot was getting deeper into Sodom, closer to comfort, closer to influence, closer to danger run. Then war came, kings rose against king cities where it Sodom fell, everything was taken, wealth, possessions, people, and Lot was carried away, captured, gone. Abram, here's the news. A man has got heavily carrying urgency in his voice, and he found Abram, Lot has been taken. That all it took. No hesitation, no debate, no. He chose that path. That's his problem. Abram moved. Faith doesn't mean passivity. Abram gathered his men, trained men, prepared men, and he went to were not for land, not for power, but for someone who made the wrong choice. Let that sink in. Lot chose right. Abram still fought for him. The rescue by night, focused, unrelenting, and against all odds he won. Lot was rescued, everything restored what was lost. Came back a strange encounter on his way back. Something unusual happened. A man appeared, not just any monarch. Priest mysterious, holy Melchizedek, brought bread and wine. He blessed Abram, and he said something powerful. Blessed be Abram by God most high. That, and Abram gave him a tenth before law, before structure, before religion. Abram recognized something spiritual. But then doubt creeps in. That night after the victory, after the blessing, after everything comes for you, because even strong faith can feel weak in quiet moments. What if this doesn't last? What if I lose everything? What if I misunderstood God? And God responded, do not be afraid. God spoke again, Abram, do not be afraid. I am your shield, I am your reward. But Abram asked the real question, a deep one and honest one. What about the promise? I still don't have a child, I still don't see it. This is where the story gets real, because Abram wasn't pretending he believed, but he was still waiting. Look at the stars. God took him outside, not into comfort, not into explanation, but into perspective. Look at the sky, count the stars if you can. That's how your descendants will be. And in that moment, Abram believed again, not because he saw proof, but because he chose to trust. Meanwhile, Lot stayed in Sodom. Let's not forget le tres good bat. Unchanged, he went back to the same place. Environment same compromise ve cause. Being rescued wasn't always mean being transformed. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever been delivered from something but went back to it? Be honest, because Lot's story isn't rare, it's common, very common. The direction of two lies. Abram stayed with God, built altars, walked in promise, grew in faith. Lot moved deeper into Sodom, blended with the culture, sat at the city gates, became part of it too. Outcomes one decision at a time. This is bigger than them. This isn't just history. This is a pattern. Every day you are choosing direction, not once but daily. So let me ask you again, are you following what looks good or what God said? Are you building where God placed you, or chasing what feels easier? Are you becoming like Abram or drifting like Lot? Engage in MENT drot. Your answer in the comments be. Honest no filters no, pretending if you were in Abram's position. Would you still trust God without seeing results? Or would you choose what looks better right now? Call to a seat, Ionif. This story is speaking to you right now. Don't scroll past it. Like this, share this with someone who needs direction. Subscribe for more powerful, life-changing stories, because someone out there is one decision away from changing their life, and this message might be what they need. Final word. Powerful, close. Abram didn't have Kladibuta, he had conviction. Lot had options but lacked discernment, and in the end one walked into destiny, the other walked into destruction. Remember Tashisu? Don't need the fool. Pichu just need the next step and the courage to take it.